It'd be nice if I knew what I was doing. I should probably start the show since it's 6:01. Holy crap. I got lost in my sharing. Woohoo. Let's have a show, shall we?
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know up to you. To you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight? So that he will fight for his right. A loyal man who brings a job a fresh new point of view. Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed? It's to which we must be true. So it's up to you. It's up to you. It's strictly up to you. Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare, you cast your vote for Kennedy, and the change that's over too. So it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you.
Welcome to our I shouldn't say our, that would imply something completely different. To from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley. That's a whole different show, isn't it? Part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in these United States, North American continent, Western Hemisphere, on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live with you for the 3rd of March. Yes. We are already into our 3rd month here in 2024, 3rd of March. Thank you to everyone who is already in the room, already saying hello. My hellos to Randall, of course, to Carmina, to Jay. Hello to everyone who's already here, and to those of you who will be dropping in, or at least we hope will be dropping in. A hearty welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, we thank you immensely for allowing us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. I know that just, Facebook likes to think that it owns everything on its platform, and legally it does. But you know what? When you create a page or a group or something, I kind of still think of that as yours. So thank you for allowing us to be in your corner of the Facebook universe, as it were. Let me check quickly to see. Somebody can probably tell me. 100. Yeah, so we've shared to about 105, I think it is, places already this week. You can hear Daisy the dog downstairs. She's very animated right now. She's I swear, I love that dog. I'll tell you what, I do. She's cute and funny and silly, and she can be smart, and she can be infuriating. But boy, she can also guard the place, I'll tell you that. She This is an old story, and I actually might have told it on the air, and I'm completely wrecking the opening to the program because I'm a little thrown off. I have a migraine. I'm nauseous. I feel like I could just fall asleep. I'm dizzy. And we're just having a post-COVID moment. So I'm going to go as long as I can go if I don't pass out or fall asleep first. I just feel like I could fall asleep right now. This is something that we've been dealing with since COVID, but this is definitely post-COVID stuff. But what I would say is, so there was a time pretty early on, when Daisy became part of our family. It was not unusual for her to wake herself up in the middle of the night barking at something that she heard, something she thought she heard, whatever the case might be. And one night I decided to volunteer, and I'll go down and check on her and see what's going on. And my, of course, intention was to shut her up. I just want you to please shut up so I can go to bed. But I went up to the carrier, I unzipped the door because she is crate trained and she does still use her crate as a safe spot. We leave it there, and if she goes in, we leave her alone, and that's her safe place. And she shot out of the crate like she was shot out of a cannon and went straight to the window and just started barking and would not stop for probably 10 minutes or so. And it didn't matter if I kept giving her treats, she would just go right back to the window and keep barking. And I have no doubt in my mind after that took place that she scared somebody. Somebody was snooping around. Which you might think would be odd for a townhouse community because it would be easier to get caught, you know, being a porch pirate or stealing people's Amazon packages. The I think the cool, in vogue term, I think is still porch pirate, stealing packages from people. I don't know who you're stealing packages from in the middle of the night, but I think somebody was snooping around and she was really on about it. And I could not get her to calm down. But then again, she does get herself wound up a little bit. It's quiet here in the house today. It's been a gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous day here in the Lehigh Valley. I think we hit 64, 65 degrees, I think perhaps. Sun was out very, very brilliantly. It was even warmer in the sun, in our living room, just taking in all that sunlight through the windows. I think it got almost 75 in the living room today. Just a really, really nice day. I really hope, really, really hope this is the end of it, that there's no more cold and no more snow and no more, just please, for in the name of all that's holy, please just stay warm. But anyway, that's so let me just get back. That's a really completely off the track story because my brain is really foggy right now and I'm dizzy and I want to go to sleep. I really honestly do think it's COVID stuff. I really do think there's them left over. Anyway, so wherever, as I was saying, we've shared to about 105 different places, I believe, this week. I don't know what the difference is that we were at like 115 last week, but we're 105 this week. We didn't seem to get blocked from any sharing that I can tell, which is awesome. I'll get into what happened last week here in just a minute, but honestly, um, even though when you sign up for Facebook, you agree to certain terms and they own everything and they use your data for marketing purposes and blah, 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 blah. We know all that. And it's true, right? It's the legal part of it is true. They own it, right? Every time I take a breath on Facebook, they own it. But what I would also say, and the reason I always say thank you to everybody so much every single week is because it still seems to me that when you create a Facebook profile, when you create a new group, a new page, that that's still yours, kind of. That's still yours. Uh, yeah, technically, legally, it's Facebook's, but it's still yours, in my humble opinion. And to all of you, individuals, groups, both large and small, both public and private, pages, anybody that is willing to allow us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe, we are just internally grateful to you for allowing it. We couldn't do it without you. We could not be here without you. We reached about 1,200 people the first few weeks of this program. We now reach over 500,000, and that's in large part due to you. Please know, like last week, like every week now, if anything should go wonky during our broadcast on Facebook, if we should be shut off like we were last week, and I'll explain it in a minute, please know we are live right now and will be through all of the for the length of the program, however long that is that I can carry you, on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/that other side of information. Same as our Facebook group, same name as our Facebook group, same name as our TikTok, same name as our Instagram, same name. It's all that other side of information. We are live there as well right now. So if anything should go haywire, if anything should go a little wonky, should go pear-shaped, and suddenly, you're on Facebook watching, listening, and then we tend to disappear, youtube.com/that other side of information. Also, YouTube still really the best place if you ever miss any of the program on Sunday nights. Great place to catch up. That's our library. That's our repository. That's our Library of Alexandria, if you will, for the Kennedy Effect. Every recorded program we've ever done is on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/that other side of information. Also, of course, our friends and family at hot101.net. Our name is our web address, but you don't need to go to the main website to listen. You can, you're perfectly welcome to. We invite you to do exactly that. But you can also listen through our apps, the Apple App Store for Apple devices, the Google Play Store for Android devices, and for all other types of devices, the TuneIn radio app. Go up to the search bar, type in hot101.net, and you are listening. It's that simple. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on, above, or below Earth, you can listen to hot101.net. And something that I've been stressing the last few weeks, I'm sorry for the sniffles on my allergies started today. Sorry for the sniffles. But when you open up the Hot 101 apps, you're immediately listening. You don't need to register. No credit card needed. Blood samples, firstborn, retina scans, fingerprints, none of that stuff. When you open up the hot101.net app, you go to let's say you have an Apple iPhone, go to the Apple App Store, search hot101.net, you find the app, you download it, you tap it, it opens, and you are listening, period. That simple. Android device, same thing. Go to the Google Play Store, find the app, download it, tap it, it opens, you're listening. No money, no registering, no passwords, no secrets, no online profile that can be scammed or skimmed. You don't need any of it. You tap it, it opens, you listen. It's that simple. And I implore all of you to please give hot101.net a try and listen to it. They are so talented. So talented, these DJs. I could never in 1,000 years do what they do. I have no rhythm. That's part of the problem, but it's not really part of the problem. It's probably all the problem. But they just do magical things with music, the way it's blended together and mixed, and the way it can energize you, and the way that the older music can make you think of really good times gone by. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place, and I hope that you check it out. I strongly, strongly implore you to check it out. Hot101.net. We are, of course, on the TCP Media Group as well, and let's not forget our sponsor, the PayGive app, a paygive.org financial transaction app. You can designate a portion of your financial transaction to go to a charity of your choice. Kids charities, educational charities, health related charities, veterans charities, animal charities are just what I would particularly push you toward. One way you judge a society is how it defends those that cannot defend itself. So think of the animals out there that need your help. So paygive.org, www.paygive.org. You have to, when you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? 6:15. We are just getting started here on the Kennedy Effect. We're thrilled that you are here. So let me get into what happened last week, and let me surprise, thank Randall. I'm so sorry I'm making all these like dad noises here. I have a runny nose, apparently. That just started when I hit play. And I have dry mouth for some reason. So I'm very sorry. Like you needed to hear that, like you wanted to hear, a complete update on my health. I have no idea what's going on. I do think my allergies are starting to bother me. I really do, because it felt like, it really, really, really felt like spring today. And I have a feeling, and I saw flowers that are starting to bloom all over the place. The yellow ones, I think they're daffodils. coming up through the soil finally, and renewing themselves yet again. Even though it is only March 3rd, I really do hope that's the end of winter. But all of that said, let me try to explain to you what happened last week, and thank Randall for catching it. If you are, if you were listening last week, or if you listened to the show later, you caught up with it later, and when Randall called in, he said you disappeared from Facebook and I don't know what happened. Maybe it's me. Well, I thought it was Randall, because in front of me right now are 3 devices and 3 screens. My phone over here is monitoring our YouTube feed in case anyone is there watching and comments, ask questions, so that I will see it and I don't miss it. In front of me is the main broadcast computer that you, of course, are looking back at me through. It is a very large and older iMac desktop. To my right is my very old iPad, which is going to need replacing pretty soon because it's starting to get pretty kitschy, or sketchy, or dodgy, or whatever you want to say. It's beginning to slow down, and I don't know how much longer it's going to actually update itself. So we're going to have to deal with that at some point. But I have 3 screens in front of me, and on my iPad is where I monitor the Facebook feed. So you may recall Randall sent some messages during the program last week to say you're not on Facebook anymore. And when he called, he mentioned it. And I just said to him, well, it's got to be you, because I'm watching myself right here. You would think that if we went down, I would get some kind of message, or the feed over here would stop. It did not. It kept going. And what I ended up finding out at the end of the program, after we said goodnight to you, is that we had indeed gotten blocked by Facebook. I would assume, and I think it's a pretty damn safe assumption, but I would assume that was because that a human being didn't do that. I suspect some sort of AI program did that, or some certain monitoring algorithm. I tend to doubt that there is a human being at Facebook who watches our program. I hope they do, to be honest. I hope they do. I hope they enjoy it. I hope they learn from it. I hope they agree. And if they don't agree, I hope they still watch. As you know, all are welcome here. But we were blocked. We were taken down. And I found out later that the reason they took us down, hang in there with me, gang. This one's going to take a minute. So I did my research. I kept the Zoom open with George well after the program was over. I think we ended up around 8:45 with you last week. George and I were on, I think, till almost 9:30. So I started my way through the Facebook rabbit hole to find out why we were taken down. And the reason is so convoluted, I almost feel bad that I'm spending this much time on it. We were accused of playing copyrighted material without permission. Now, I have no problem with people who copyright material being paid. It's probably why they did what they did in the first place. So I was able to find out what we supposedly did, or what we played. He's struggling for words. What we played. And what it turns out is that we were told this algorithm or AI program, I tend to think it's an AI program, to be honest, is that we played a piece of an audiobook that was recorded in 2019 And it is an audio version of a book written in 1353. Why am I laughing at that? I happen to think that that's a really cool thing. That someone took literally medieval, Middle Ages, actually 1300s might still be the Dark Ages, book and recorded it for modern consumption. I happen to think that's brilliant. But what we were taken down for was supposedly using part of this recording. And it strikes me as funny on so many different levels because we don't use other people's recordings. We just don't. And when I have, like, when I stop talking, you folks might hear a rumbling underneath me. It's publicly sourced, it's not copyrighted. So that's why we use it. We use it for a very technical reason. I'm not going to bore you with it, but we do. We don't use copyrighted material and we don't play music here. It's a talk program. So we were accused of using music that was put into the production of this audiobook. Now, I appealed this decision twice, and I've yet to hear what the quote unquote verdict is of this appeal. So I will be very curious to see what that turns out to be. But this is an extremely long-winded way of trying to explain to you what happened last week, and also to encourage you. As I mentioned at the top of the program, as I put on the header of the posts, if we ever disappear from Facebook, where we're just shut off, or you're watching and we disappear and you get some sort of message that the content isn't available or any of this kind of weird stuff, YouTube never took us down and never stopped the program. So whatever Facebook thought they heard, YouTube didn't hear it and didn't affect our program for 1 second. So please, I beg you, always remember that as my very quiet little, cold, occasionally lukewarm war with Facebook continues, YouTube is always there. YouTube.com, that other side of information, just like the Facebook group, that other side of information. That is our YouTube channel. There's no adverts there. You do not have to sign up. There's no money. You can find our channel and watch. I'm asking you to give us a subscribe, hit the subscribe button, but not for money, just to boost the number of subscribers so that we don't get taken down or that our channel doesn't get preempted or anything like that. It's kind of how these things work. I know they sound, it sounds almost like, love me, accept me, shower attention on me. Give me a like, give me a love, give me a share, give me a subscribe, give me a this, that, the other. But that's how social media works. It's driven on these little actions, these very simple actions, where a like here, a share here, a comment there, subscribe there. There's a lovely woman who just showed up at my house. That's awesome. We love when that happens. I think she looks familiar. She looked similar to the woman that left this morning to work. It's those things matter. They really do. The more likes, subscribes, well, Facebook doesn't do subscribe. The more members we have in the Facebook group, the more people who allow us to share the program, the more people who like, listen, watch the program, even if not live, later on in the week. It keeps that kind of weird crap from happening. So, and again, if we ever disappear from Facebook, and again, kudos and thanks to Randall for catching it, our YouTube channel's always there. We have never, ever been taken off of YouTube, ever. So thank you for getting through that. And thanks to everybody for continuing to tune in and to support our program. We appreciate it very, very much. I want to say, let me dart off into another very personal thing that's happening here. My cousin Tina is watching the program, as she does most weeks, which is humbling at a minimum, very, very humbling. And she's telling me how much I look like my dad. And yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. Yep, I'll take it. Um, yeah, I'll take that. It's kind of funny. I think if my father was still alive, he would hate this. When I first got into politics, he in high school. I mean, deeply into politics. I always followed politics. He and I always talked policy. We talked elections. He taught me how to be aware, taught me how to be civically engaged, taught me actually how easy it can be to be civically engaged. I've told the story on here way too many times about he was the first person to take me to vote and stressed to me how deeply, deeply important it was to vote and that it was my civic duty and also my constitutional right. My dad was a Republican his entire life. I think really only at the end did he see how the party that he had supported his whole life changed and left him. I think it was really only at the end that he began to see that. Um, but I have to think that if he were still with us and he knew I was doing this, he'd be pretty mortified. He did not support my entry into politics. I think I've told the story on here before that when I ran for the school board in Phillipsburg, I was asked by the Democratic Party to run for the school board in Phillipsburg. I bought campaign signs and I wanted to put one out in front of the house. I was still living at home. And he told me, no, you can't. Like, well, why can't I put a campaign sign in front of my own house? And he said to me, because it's my house and I don't support you doing this. So, no. And he said no for a good couple of weeks. And finally, I just said to him, look, this is politics. How does it look when I don't have a campaign sign out in front of my own house? And he finally relented and let me put a campaign sign in. And I took that sign down immediately after election day. Um, Funny, I didn't keep any of them. You think I would have kept one for posterity, but I didn't. But yeah, I have to think that he wouldn't exactly be too thrilled with what I'm doing now. Then again, he was very technologically challenged. Um, you barely use the remote for the TV. So I have to think that he probably wouldn't know how to find this program if I sent a trial balloon up. If I had written it out, I probably still wouldn't know what to do. He had no clue. He never had a mobile phone. He had the TV remote was one of those things that he'd take it, hit a button, like have to find the button, hit it, pick it back up, find the next one, hit it. And by the time he got to the channel he was trying to get to, it had timed out. So then it went to the wrong channel and then he flipped out. And then he had short fuse that one. And then yeah, but I have to think he wouldn't be too damn happy about what I'm doing. Just makes me oh thank you, Tina, because you kept me from crying, probably. I tend to cry every time I think of him. And I think of him every single day. And you know, Kristen and I had a meeting with our pastor last week, which was really fantastic, lovely, really nice meeting. And of course, she asked about family and so on. And there really, there's not a huge bit of my family left. Um, that that my dad had passed and so on. And it occurred to me as I was talking to her about our pastor, to her about Pastor Janelle, about Pop, that we tend to think I don't want to get too deep into this. I'm not going to I'm not a pastor myself. I don't want to preach to anybody. I don't want to tell you how to think. I try to get you to think, but I'm not here to tell you how to think. I just hope that you think. There's a severe lack of thinking going on in the country at the moment. I think as we get older, we tend to think of death, and then older folks who have death in their lives, as we tend to be more of a get over it kind of mood. I mean, I would never hope for this for anyone, but when a child loses a parent very young in life, we're so terribly worried about that child, as we should be, very much as we should be. How are they? How are they getting along? Are they back to school? Do they need counseling help, brief help? What kind of help does the single parent, what is now a single parent, now need at the home, and on and on and on. As we get older, I was 40. Goodness, what was I? 2016, yeah, well, 8 years ago already? No, can't be that many years. No, it was 17, I think. Regardless, I was in my late 40s. I hadn't turned 50 yet. We tend to think that once you get into your late 40s, your 50s, and so on, that when you lose someone, that it's just somehow easier. You get over it quicker, because death is simply the next step in existence. It is the next step in our journey. And that when you're older, it's not supposed to bother you as much. Well, not only did it bother me then, not only does it bother me now, I am not now and have not been since he got ill the same person. It affects me every single day. And I miss him terribly. And because even though we didn't talk every day, it's kind of the interesting thing, if you will, about death, is that you cannot. I didn't talk to my father every single day because he was so hard of hearing. He was impossible to talk to on the phone. So generally speaking, I either talked to him on the phone through my mother, or when I went to visit him. So the interesting thing about death is that sense, that presence, is what's gone. I knew I could call there, be a terribly difficult discussion because I couldn't hear anything. But I could visit and he would be there. And I always knew he would be there. And then somebody passes, and then you go to where you used to visit them and they're not there anymore. It is a very powerful thing. And just because we get older doesn't make you deal with it any better, or doesn't make it hurt any less. And it does every single day. 6:35. We are into our first hour here on the Kennedy Effect, live with you for the 3rd of March. He meant to say and tried to say for the 3rd of March, 2024. Wherever you are on Facebook, we've shared the program to well over 100 different places. I think it's in the 105 or more range. We thank you for allowing us to be part of your corner of the Facebook universe. You can watch us live now, comment, question. It's just us, no guests again. I'm not going to review the whole new guest policy. I'm not going to review the whole guest policy again. We have open invitations out to probably 36 people, and none of them will commit. So I'm not going to beg. They are welcome here if they want to come here. Everyone is welcome here, but I'm not going to beg people anymore. So it's just us. You got comments, you got questions, anything that you want to talk about, please use the phone. I should put the phone number up. That would help, wouldn't it? Well, it is over my shoulder. You might be able to read it over my shoulder, but I will put it up on the screen as well. Great night for phone calls, comments, questions, anything that you want to chat about, do that. Come to my Facebook page. Jeff Kennedy is where I'll see all the comments. That's where I see them. If you are watching in any of the other places that has been kind enough to share our program, stay there, enjoy. I encourage it. I just don't always see the comments and the questions. I miss them. Sometimes I get them afterward, And then folks tend to think I'm ignoring them. I'm not ignoring you. It's just the way Facebook works. You can comment on the, Lehigh Valley Progressive Network, and I won't see it, unfortunately. Only going to see your comments at my Facebook page, Jeff Kennedy. We have shared the program, of course, to our group, That Other Side of Information, and 105 other places across Facebook. Thank you for allowing us to do so. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. If you can connect to the internet anywhere on, above, or below Earth, you can listen. Desktops, laptops, tablets, phones, Bluetooth it to headphones, earbuds, speakers, Bluetooth it in the car. You can tell Alexa to play hot101.net, reaching hundreds of thousands around the globe, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you should be part of it. Hot101.net. We're also in the TCP Media Group. And our sponsor is the PayGive app, www.paygive.org. PayGive, when you buy things, you have to pay for them. You might as well give while you do it. For those of you who might be looking for George is a bit under the weather. I was texting with him earlier in the day. He said he believes he is developing a cold. I certainly hope not. I tend to think I also know I think he's got allergies, if I'm not mistaken. So it might be, and I might have that wrong, but I think he does. I think he's an allergy sufferer the way I am. 267-2279. Yep, I got it right. So it could be his allergies too, because I'm telling you, it was a gorgeous day. It was a really gorgeous day today. But then anyway. So we wish our best to George. Hope he feels better so he can't be with us tonight. I think he's, says he thinks he's developing a cold. I know George well enough to know that means nose, cough, could be a scratchy throat, dodgy voice, all that fun stuff. But we just hope that he feels better. It's always a better program when George is here. I always feel more comfortable. I always feel like I can really kind of do my thing. I don't have to pay attention to as many of the technical bits when he's here. But hey, life happens. Sometimes you don't always feel well. Comment in from my other cousin Dawn, who says she understands. Yeah, absolutely. We both know, don't we? That's the one thing about growing older too. The roster of folks that go before you tends to grow, doesn't it? Randall says, my father and mother always let me put up signs in the front of their home, whether I lived there or had moved on. When I ran for township auditor, the 2 times school board, state rep. Well, rub it in my face, then why don't you? So I know he's not doing that, but I'm busting his chops. Yeah, I just look, Pop, for as much as Pop taught me about politics, he hated it. And he hated that I got involved. And I suspect at this moment, he'd probably still hate what I'm doing. I think I'd like to think that very deep down he'd be proud, but at the same time, he just didn't like it. He thought it was a dirty business. But, let me just see. Randall mentions that he shared the group to 4 different Democratic committees and 6 other groups. I appreciate that's another 10. That puts us, puts us in the 115 range. I'm very happy about that. Thank you, sir. Every single person that watches and listens to this program, and it doesn't have to be live. If you catch up with it during the week, I ask you and beg you, continue to share it, please, everywhere that it's appropriate, and especially the places where it isn't. Share it into some Republican groups, see how that goes. Carmina mentions, I want to know if there is a universal socioeconomic gap issue that exists in every region of PA. Well, I could do probably a month of shows on that. There's a socioeconomic gap that exists in this country, period. And the Commonwealth is not immune from it. Wealth inequality in this country is worse than it was before the Republican Great Depression, before the Great Crash and the Republican Great Depression in 1929, in through the 30s and 40s. It is worse. And oh, by the way, why did he call it the Republican Great Depression? Because that's what it was referred to as, up until Republicans were successful in being able to drop their name off of it, that they didn't own it anymore. In the 30s, it was known as and referred to as the Republican Great Depression. Very commonly. Very, very commonly. So, and wealth equality is, hold on. How'd that happen? Somebody tried to call and I tried to answer it and it was gone before I could answer it. Oh boy, it's gonna be one of those nights. Senator Sanders tells us that, but also government data tells us that. There is nowhere in the country that I am aware of, and I think I just saw another article on that on this particular thing this week. There is nowhere in the country that a worker making the minimum wage can sustain themselves. They would have to be, you certainly can't afford housing on it. Or at a minimum, it would take a disproportionate percentage of your income to afford that housing, in which case you would then not be able to afford food. And even if you could afford the housing and the food, you probably can't afford transportation, and you certainly can't afford to see a doctor. Most minimum wage workers don't qualify for quote unquote health benefits. So wealth inequality is worse now than it was before the Republican Great Depression and Great Crash. We also know from Senator Sanders and many others, this is something that Senator Warren talks about a lot as well. She picked up on this because it's the truth. 40% of Americans cannot absorb, afford, financially deal with, insert proper term here. That, blimey. Wow, that's getting proper, isn't it? How about that? Boy, and I'll tell you what else too. That program is operating slowly, isn't it? I have a feeling that's Carmina. Welcome, my dear friend. How are you?
Who's this?
Who's this? It's
Is there a delay? Like I'm watching you, and
you should. Yeah, you need to be listening on the phone. There's at least from live through to Facebook. I think the delay is anywhere from 10 to 17 seconds. It will screw you up royally if you listen to yourself over Facebook. We need to just talk on the phone.
Go.
Or just mute it.
Well, so intriguing, and I love your brain and the way you articulate your thoughts. And the reason why I posed that.
Well, you're being very gracious tonight because I got COVID fog today right now. I don't know what the hell's coming out of my face at the moment. I'm certainly not stringing together thoughts very well. That's for darn sure.
Wow. So I just wanted to you pose that question, Jeff, and talk to you because, I being that I live in the Southeast region, being that I travel all across the state, I do see poverty being a unifying factor, and it doesn't have to do anything with race. And I think that we have to, I would like to engage in larger conversations about that aspect. And like you said, the wealth gap and the wealth inequities. I didn't know how you say it, but that to me is a key issue. When I traveled around the state and I just saw all the differences in the regions that had I not gone there, I wouldn't have known. But because I ventured out, I learned more. And I don't think people outside of Pittsburgh and Philly venture out enough to just see what's actually going around in our state. And so when I think about our state house and I think about our representation at our state house, there's poor white rural families in rural PA. You know what I mean? There's a human condition issue. And
but doesn't that go both ways? Those poor rural white families are not traveling to Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and the Lehigh Valley either. So it's not that lack of connection is going both ways. We're not connecting. And I think that's probably the same across the country. I mean, how many rural poor white farmers, if there are any poor family farmers left in places like, I don't know, Nebraska, Iowa, southern Minnesota, Wyoming, Idaho, places like that, how many trips are they taking to their closest population center, if it's Sioux City, Iowa, or Minneapolis, or Boise, Idaho, or Butte, Montana? They're not connecting with each other.
No, I agree. So let me premise this my statement with the facts that I drew from when I was traveling around the state, because I don't want anybody to think I'm racist. The fact I look at school districts and their percentage of economically disadvantaged students as a measurement to kind of garner where families are. So what I learned from my research is that when school districts in rural PA are 97% white, the poverty rate is 30 to 50%. When you add Black and brown to that group, then the poverty rate starts at 50% and goes to 90%. But I was just fascinated that at the core, the common denominator is that there's poor white families there because there's a greater percentage of them. And so my point is that when we talk about, I'm a really big person on educational equity. I was in Clearfield. I was in all these other places, and students that were cashiers at Walmart talked about how they were unsatisfied with their school systems and their response to COVID and all those things. And I just was thinking that we need to talk about the human issues that exist in Pennsylvania and how do we address them across the board. And I think there's always this misnomer that, poverty's deep entrenched in Philly because there's Black people there. Now there's more white people in Philly than Black. And if you go to the southwest corridor of the state, there's a different set of demographics. And I just want to get back to talking about human issues and our similarities across our state, and how we need to force our legislators to do something about the human issues. And educational equity gaps is another one. So that's why I posed the question.
Well, I talked about this a bit. Well, I tend to talk about it a lot, but I especially talked about it around the Dr. King National Holiday and throughout Black History Month. And we are now into Women's History Month, by the way. Hey, women. Women's what did I hear today? Women's Herstory Month. HER. I'll try to say it. Yeah, I'll try to say that. I didn't come up with that. I completely stole that. I happened to hear that on TV today, so I'm stealing that. But one of the, I remember specifically, and I think I do it just about every year. At least I'd like to think that I'm this bright. I don't think I am that bright, but I'd like to think so. That one of the really lost, and I think it's intentionally lost, by the way. I think there's the old saying that, to the victors are the ones that write the history. And I'm butchering that quote terribly. Randall will probably correct me on that at some point. But the victors write the history. Yeah. So I think one of the most lost sections, that's not the right word, messages of Dr. King was his economic equality, his economic justice work, his speeches in churches, in public, and in part of his "I Have a Dream" speech of look, we are all, and I stand. God, I'm getting all foggy. Implicit in his knowledge, in his speech making, and in his oratory is, surprise, surprise, look at me. Here I am, a Black man standing in front of you, educated and a man of the cloth both, saying that we, people of color, are the same as all the rest of you, and that we want the very same things. We simply want a shot at the American dream, the same as you have. He didn't talk about, we didn't want free stuff. We don't want anything that other people don't have. We simply want it to be recognized that we have been marginalized for 400 years. And we simply want to be on the same plane as the rest of you, and then we will make our own way. We just want an equal shot. And the extended part of that message, and me not being an expert on Dr. King by any means, was poor whites. We're poor too. We get it. We're right there with you.
Right.
We don't want anything that you don't want. We want the same things.
Correct.
And that we have to walk forward together, standing side by side to push unionization, to push for better wages, to push for corporations and rich people to pay taxes, to push for reinvestment in communities from those taxes. Not just people of color, but all of us who are economically disadvantaged. White, black, brown. He talked a lot about indigenous folks in this country too, by the way, which is a part of his message that I think is very intentionally ignored. His advocacy for indigenous peoples. So,
But so Jeff, that's what, not to interrupt, but can I
no,
say
you can
something?
interrupt me all you want. I'm here every week.
You have all these Trump country communities that are in white rural PA, but their quality of life and their living conditions and their socioeconomic status is not something that their state legislators do to ensure that it's improved. And so when I had the opportunity to engage white rural voters or residents or community members, I talked about why not seeking more of your quality of life and having those conversations, because that is a universal thing that we can all empathize, co-sign. All of us have a spirit of inconditions that are not conducive, and that's what kind of like frustrates me about Trump voters. Like, there's more Trump voters that are economically disadvantaged than rich ones, and that's what perplexes me. We need to have more conversations about our quality of life so we can find some commonalities and try to get people to look at the big picture. Because when I think about our state legislators in the House and in the Senate from rural communities, they're not getting funded by their campaigns, by their constituents. They're getting it from outside money. And that's just my thought.
I've been very, very honored and humbled to be able to consult with and speak with and bounce ideas with candidates for a variety of office from the local, municipal, county, state, and federal across this country. And one of my basic philosophies, I guess, if you will, about the way Democrats need to campaign is that we need to be a hell of a lot tougher. And we need to be a hell of a lot more aggressive. Not angry, not disrespectful, but tougher, a little more stiff in the spine, a little more blow out the chest. I would blow out my chest if I still had one. My gut happens to be a hell of a lot bigger than my chest. But puff out our chest a little bit and be proud of the work that we've done. Be proud of the work that we are trying to do. Be proud of the party that we are, knowing that we can do much better, and be proud of the party that we used to be. And the things that we have done historically. Win 2 world wars, end the Republican Great Depression, put a man on the moon, build roads and water systems and power systems through the Peace Corps for poor peoples all around the globe. That's us. And when we talk to those folks that you're talking about, the rural, poor, white families, be they farmer or displaced manufacturing skilled folks, whatever they might be, I think we have to stand in front of those folks and be a little more aggressive, be a little more stiff in the spine, and say to them, as they tell us their story, as they tell us their concerns about their school district, their property taxes, that the fracking wells and pipelines have destroyed their farms, to be able to be confident enough to go right back at them and say, then why the hell do you keep voting this way?
Correct.
Why are you doing this then? Here's the deal. And I say this to every candidate who's kind enough to listen to me. And I do mean that. No one has to listen to me, but they do. They keep asking, and I'm honored by every single one that does. Folks, Mr. and Mrs. Poor rural white who continues to vote Republican no matter who it is on the ballot. Satan himself could run as a Republican and win in some of these so-called Christian districts.
Correct.
Name the 5 biggest issues that are important to you. And I will bet you that we probably agree on all 5 of them, except that you've never taken the time to listen because I happen to have a D in parenthesis behind my name. When does that stop? When do you look in the mirror and make a conscious decision that you deserve better, that you are better than this,
better,
and that even if we disagree on this particular issue and the policy solutions for it, I'm standing right here in front of you to talk to you.
Absolutely.
Let's talk to each other. Where is your Republican representative? How many town halls have you had? Do you know when he or she is at their local office? Do you even know how to reach their local office? Did you even know they had a local office? When's the last town hall they had? When's the last time they came here to do anything other than scare you about Black and brown people who want to vote and want a job? The same as you, by the way. The same as you. So we have to be stiffer in the spine that way, if you don't mind the colloquialism. We need to sit up a little straighter in our chairs. We need to stand a little taller and say, wait, sorry, what party capped the cost of insulin at $35? And every single Republican voted against it? That's us. Which party put a $1.5 trillion into infrastructure and every single Republican voted against it and then came home to you and tried to take credit for it? That's us. That's us. At the same time, admitting that we're not perfect. Our party's got a hell of a lot of work to do. We still have not broken down the basic tenets of Reaganism and trickle-down economics. The top marginal tax rate is still only 37 point something percent. The corporate rate is 20 something percent. The capital gains rate is, I think, 15. We have to fix these things and restore a balance to the society. The richest 3 people in the country, three, have as much wealth as the bottom 60% of Americans.
Exactly.
The richest, I heard a new one this past week. The richest 8 people, by the way, on the planet hold as much wealth as the bottom 4 billion. And the new one that I heard this week is that the richest 680 people on the planet, 680 people, have as much wealth as the bottom 90. Well, no. Wait, I'm saying it wrong. Let me fix myself. The richest 680 people, because I'm doing this from memory. I'm phrasing this incorrect and I want to be correct. The richest 680 people currently hold 90% of the world's wealth. On a planet of 8 billion people, the richest 680 hold 90% of the wealth. That's unsustainable. And Mr. and Mrs. Poor White Rural Voter, guess what? He ain't one of the 680.
Not at all.
These are not temporarily inconvenienced billionaires, the way Fox has convinced them that if they just hate all the right people, they'll somehow get rich. That is my overextended spiel on that.
Well, I thank you, Jeff, for just, allowing me to put the question out there and just to put that whole issue out there, because that's the bottom line. And we need to have conversations with rural voters, because when I went around, and I think, my lens with being from the Southeast region, from being from Philadelphia, being from Montgomery County, it was eye-awakening. And I actually wanted more people from my region go to other parts of the state, because, I did a Civic Saturday gathering in Forest County and in Tionesta. Their per capita income is $6,000. $6,000. Their school system, they have 2 buildings 30 miles apart. K to 12 is 412 students. Well, that was the last data.
Right.
And yet, and when I gathered some of the young people there, one of the big issues for the elderly people is that the banking has gone more towards being online, and old people can't physically go to banks anymore. They have one grocery store in Tionesta, and for me, it wasn't even near the quality of like a Wawa. It was a hyper infused Wawa. I don't know about Sheetz that much, but my point is that there are plights all around our state, and there's communities that are so out of touch with whatever is going on in Harrisburg, not connected to their state representatives, and yet the same people get in because no one's paying attention and no one is taking the time to talk with them and commiserate on their human condition. And for me, I don't care if it's white, black, purple, blue, wherever, I'll go and I'll talk, because I want people to want to be inspired to be engaged by their own reasoning and not because they've been a Republican their whole life. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to have this discourse with you.
You are always welcome here. You know that. The phone number is the same every single week. Every single time I'm live, even if it's on a special night, phone number is always the same. You're always welcome here. I know how busy you are, by the way. I continue to not know how you do it. The miles that you cover and
Jay just mentioned something in the chat. I mean, Jay was there too. And I mean, we stayed in a neighboring town in an Airbnb. And, I think the people that we stayed with, they felt my spirit. And that's what I think has been successful for me. Like, people thought I was crazy to get in my car and travel into like Bedford and Somerset and all those kind of different counties. But when I took the time to engage, people have told me they felt my sincerity and they were able to listen to me. And I think that we need to have more conversations like that in our state. And, I remember driving, and I'll say this last because I'm so sorry, but I wanted to
No, you take your time. Take your time.
To listen to what I was listening to digitally, and I had to listen to radio. And there was only limited channels. They had, right-wing TV, country music, rock music, and then some evangelistic music. If that's all they know and that's all they're exposed to, they're not going to. If a Black person doesn't come into their community, there's pockets. But, someone like me from the whole other side of the state, they're not going to hear a different perspective.
Right. So, I would extend that to say that not just a woman of color, but if LGBTQIA people don't go and make that outreach. And by the way, I know it's probably going to sound a little ridiculous, but if white folks from the cities and from different areas don't come in and say, we're here with you, we're all Pennsylvanians, we're all Americans. And it was interesting earlier today. An indivisible group from Hawaii actually saw a post, one of my promotional posts for this program, for today's program actually, and liked it. And I thought, well, that's cool, all the way from Hawaii. And so I clicked on them, gave them a like, tried to, filled out the questions to become part of their group, so that hopefully I can continue to share into their group in the future, if they are willing to have me do that. And that's entirely up to them. It's their group. But they asked me, what is your connection to Hawaii? And I said, none, absolutely none, other than the fact that we all hold the same values. We're all Americans. You are my fellow Americans, and your success is my success. We succeed together. We are a community and we are a society. I've said on this program 1,000 different times probably now that, if George was here, I'd put the bingo card up, that it all started with Reagan. It's one of the great lies that Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan put on the Western world, is that we are not a community, that we're all just rugged individuals. Well, that's complete bull. You know what? It's complete crap. It's a lie. We are a community. We are a society. We are all in this together. If my house catches on fire, you're damn sure my neighbors are worried about it.
Exactly.
as they should be.
We're all Pennsylvanians. You know, I caught a lot of flack going into Uniontown and standing up for Antoinette. And they used to say, but you don't live in Uniontown. And I didn't care. I mean, ultimately, I said, we're all Pennsylvanians. And if someone in another part of the state is going through something, I'm helping them. And that's the mentality that we have to get. We are all Pennsylvanians. So
Absolutely.
I have to go for a Zoom in a few minutes.
Hard to believe that you have another meeting. I can't believe it.
Proposition to you. My proposition was for us to go on tour. And I just put it out there for Jay. I want us to reimagine a conversation tour. And it should be a mixture of different type of demographics on that tour. So I'm just going to put it out there to anybody. I'm going to have, you know, out down the road, I'm going to have a statewide call because I want to check in with everybody. But we've got to do something different in this election cycle, and we have to focus on real human issues and real human dialogue. I know out in the outskirts, the signs and the billboards are a big deal, but we've got to do something different this time, Jeff, for the sake of our state house.
Well, again, you know, first off, I'm in anything that anybody's willing to invite me to. I will do. I will make any and all effort that I possibly can to be there. Because if somebody's kind enough to think of me to invite me to it, then I owe them to be there. So I will make that happen as best as I am able. Because of course I do still work full time. Heaven forbid this could be my career. But so I do still work full time. But that said, yeah, I do think, and you know my opinion, we've got to be a lot louder. We really do. And it's not about money, by the way. You don't have to always have money to be loud. And you don't always have to have gobs and gobs of money to stand for the truth and to shout your truth out and to tell people the truth of the situation, whether they want to hear it or not. We need to run more on what we've done and what we believe in. And this is why knocking doors, good old fashioned knocking doors, is such a key part of any kind of electioneering and campaigning, is that interpersonal, interhuman connection of look me in the eyes, tell I'm here right now, talk to me, I'm knocking on your door because you matter and because we care about you and because your voice needs to be heard. And you know, that's why that stuff works. I mean, yeah, TV's great, radio's great. And Carmina's right, by the way. There are vast swaths of this country where all you can hear is country, Christian music, and right-wing hate radio. 1,500 plus right-wing hate radio stations, 500 plus Spanish language right-wing hate radio stations, including one right here in our own Lehigh Valley.
Wow.
So thank you. I'm so sorry that we.
And Jeff, I'll try to get on as best as I can. I have a Zoom in 10 minutes or to prepare one for 7:30. You guys, thank you.
Have a great night, Carmina. Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's Carmina Taylor, dear friend, and not just friend of the program, but friend, period, which is, you know, one of the great gifts of this program have been the friendships that I've made. Randall, Carmina, Jay is in the chat. My cousins and I have reconnected here in the chat. I feel like we get back to feel like a mini family reunion here every Sunday. But you know, the people that come up to me and say, "Oh, you do the show?" Yes, and that's pretty cool stuff. 7:10. I'm a little late for the reset. 7:10. We've entered our second hour here on the Kennedy Effect, live with you for March 3rd. I just blanked out on what the heck day it was, even though I have told you that and said it repeatedly for March 3rd. 2024. Yes, it's March already. And boy, did it feel like March today. Sunshine, gorgeous, warm, beautiful. It's still really nice out. I had to turn the fan on because I have a fan underneath here. It gets a little hot in here. I had to turn the fan on for the first time here in 2024. That kind of made me feel good because I much prefer the warmer weather to the cold weather as I get older and the body pain gets worse and worse and worse. I need the warm weather. Wherever you are on Facebook, 100 what? I don't know. Randall told me he shared to 10. So I think we're approaching 120 different places that we have shared the program. To everyone who allows us to share the program into your corner of the Facebook universe, thank you. We could not do it without you. This program now reaches Doesn't mean that many people are listening or watching, but we now reach over 500,000 people around the world every single week. And we are grateful for that. 1,200 when we started 5 years ago, 500,000 now. We're proud of it. And we hope that you keep sharing us out there as well. We could not be here if you are not there. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. Listen on any type of device that can connect to the internet above, on, or below Earth. If you can connect to the internet, you can listen. Hot101.net 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the globe. Tune in and check us out, the TCP Media Group, and of course, our loan sponsor, the PayGive app, www.paygive.org. When you buy things, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? And I think Carmina raises a really, really important point. There's a very funny conflicting thing about campaigning, is that you campaigns in and of themselves, political campaigns, candidate campaigns, even public advocacy campaigns, one of the really interesting things about them is that they can be very dichotomous. If you're a candidate running for re-election, you need to be able to talk about the good things, but you also need to be able to talk about the things that haven't been accomplished yet, which then opens you up to the scrutiny, if you will, of, well, you've been in office, why haven't you fixed this? Challengers in elections must focus on the negative. They always have to focus on the negative. I'm running against the sitting office holder because they didn't do this and they didn't do that and they didn't fix this and they didn't. But yet they also have to somewhat focus on the positive of, my party stands for these positive things and we accomplished this when we were in power, and we can fix this by this method. And campaigns are always a dichotomy of the negative and the positive. They're a mix of the both. You have to be both. You have to focus on the negatives. My opponent has no experience. My opponent moved into the district 10 minutes ago just to run for the seat. My opponent, when it comes to congressional districts, doesn't even live in this district. He entered office as a poor working union guy. He's now a millionaire. How do you think that happened? But we also have to focus on the positive. Look at my record. I voted for this. I voted for that. I support this. I support that. I voted for this particular piece of legislation. It passed, signed by the president, and look at the good that it's doing. But what I said to Carmina, and she tended to agree, thank goodness, because she's an extremely smart lady. So I'll take that, as a compliment that she agreed, is that we as Democrats, because the media is not fair to us. They are not. Just again today, I got a news alert on my phone, a push notification from the New York Times that they did yet another article on how certain Democrats are uncomfortable with Joe Biden's age. Really? Where's the articles on Trump's age? He's less than 3 years young. He's 2.5 years younger than Joe Biden. And if you've listened to him speak in public in the last few months, none of it's really made any sense. He thought Nikki Haley was the Speaker of the House. He still thinks Barack Obama is president of the United States. He has no understanding of geography. Where's all the articles about how old he is and his cognitive abilities and how comfortable Republicans are with his age and his morbid obesity? No, it's only Joe Biden that we hear about his age. And there's people older than both of them all throughout the House of Representatives and in the Senate. Do we hear about that? The average age of the House, I think, is now over 60. In fact, it might even be higher than that. Why is Maxwell Frost the only member in his 20s? And I believe he is the only member in his 20s in the House of Representatives. Even AOC has, crossed into her 30s, which by no means is old. My goodness, I think she was 27 when she was first elected. So, and she's on her third term. So I think she's in her 30s now. I'm pretty sure Maxwell Frost is the only of Florida, is the only House member in his 20s. Why? Do we see articles about that? No, only Joe Biden. We're only worried about the fact that Joe Biden's old. Who, by the way, Joe Biden himself has stood behind a mic and said, yep, I'm old. Next. So our media has not done us well. Our media is not doing stories on the fact that the CHIPS Act, the massive government expenditure to bring computer chip manufacturing back to the United States, which has been a roaring success and is disproportionately, by the way, economically empowering and benefiting red southern states. Why? Because they hate unions. Those state governments are actively hostile to unions and will help companies make sure they never get a union, and they suppress wages. So if the manufacturers are coming back, good thing. They're going to right to work, union hating red states. Maybe not the best thing in the world, especially when the Republican legislators are running around those red states saying, look at what I did for you. Except you didn't, you liar. You voted against the very act that made this expansion of chip manufacturing in this country and in your district possible. You voted against it, and then you're running around taking credit for it. Our media doesn't do a very good job of that either. So that means Democrats and Democratic candidates, and yes, damn it, Democratic incumbents need to start going around their districts, and Democratic challengers in red districts need to start going around their districts and being just a little more energetic and a little more passionate and a little more smile on your face confrontational. Start asking people questions. Mr. and Mrs., as Carmina mentioned, Mr. and Mrs. Poor rural white voter. You have voted Republican your entire life, and you've watched your entire economic standing be taken away from you. So how's that working out for you? Maybe it's time for something different. Maybe instead of blaming the Democratic Party the way you have been told to blame them, maybe it's time for you to look in the mirror and ask yourself some questions. Why do I keep voting this way and my life only gets worse? We only get poorer. We only get sicker. Our land only gets less and less bountiful, or just taken away from us entirely because we can't afford to pay the taxes on it anymore. The top 1% in this country since the onset of Reaganism has been given $55 trillion in income tax cuts alone. What could happen to poor rural communities of any color if they had another $55 trillion to spend on schools, roads, small business incentives? $55 trillion. But we as Democrats have to go make that case. We have to stand in front of these voters and say, sorry, you're wrong. You are wrong. You are misinformed. You have been lied to. You have been used and exploited. And your quality of life has only gotten worse and worse and worse. It's not our fault. It might be yours. And probably, not even probably, more truthfully, it's not your fault either. It's the people you continue to put in power. So why keep putting them in power? It's time for something different. And I actually know a handful of Democratic candidates who have said to red voters, you give me a chance. If I fail, vote me out. But nothing changes until something changes. It's time for change. You know, the United States Congress, the House and the Senate, has about a 12% approval rating. 12%. But when you ask Americans about their representative, their senator or member of the House, then that approval rating skyrockets to about 94%. Those two things don't make sense. You can't blame the body, but not blame the people who make up the body. And this Republican majority, as thin as it is the majority of nothing. Now, it's been somewhat publicized this week that this last Republican Congress was the most ineffective in American history. They only passed whatever number of bills that they passed. I think it was less than 100. I don't necessarily think that that is a very good measure. I mean, if we're passing bills just for the sake of passing bills, I don't know that I consider that to be constructive or effective or efficient. I wouldn't care if this last Republican majority passed 10 bills. If those 10 made serious, positive, fundamental change for every American. Except that isn't what happened. This Republican Party, the current Republicans, I won't say Republican Party, I almost did. They're not a functioning political party. Support nothing. They have no platform. They stand for nothing. They are the party of no. If Democrats support it, then I'm against it. All right, well, I'd like to pass a resolution that the sky is in fact blue. Nope. Sponsored by a Democrat, we're against it. They are the party of no. And they're not just the party that says no, they are the party of no. No ideas, no leadership, no governance, no plan, no future, no growth, no unions. They're the party of no. So we as Democrats then have to go to the people that continue to vote this way and ask them tough questions. Don't you deserve more than this? Aren't you better than this? How many times do you pull that lever and get crapped on for it and then go back and pull the same lever over and over and over again? Of course, I'm using the term pull a lever. We don't pull levers in voting anymore. But you get my point. Because at some point, especially in these super deep red gerrymander districts where Christ himself could not win as a Democrat, we really do have to ask these people some damn tough questions. How long do you have to get shit on? How many times do you have to pound your head against the wall before you realize that really hurts? How many times do you have to put your hand on the burner before you realize it's pretty damn hot? At some point, this is your fault because you're perpetuating this. Why did Mitch McConnell enter the House of Representatives? Well, he entered politics as a lower middle class kind of dude. Lawyer, I believe, if I remember correctly. He was a county commissioner and county executive, I think, in Kentucky, and then ran for the U.S. House and won, and then ran for the Senate. He's just shy of a billionaire now. He and his wife are worth over $900 million. You think that's an accident? And Kentucky's still one of, if not the poorest state in the country. And yet he's served it for over 40 years? What the hell were you doing for 40 years? You got rich while your state starved. So then we as Democrats, and Andy Beshear, I think, did this, and that's why he won a second term as a Democratic governor in a red state. He asked people the question. We can do better. Don't you think we can do better than this? Democrats aren't the ones that took these things from you. Let's work together and do better. Democrats didn't take women's bodily autonomy from you. Republicans did that. Democrats didn't slash taxes on corporations and rich people. Republicans did that. And you're paying a difference. How does a senator become a billionaire, or damn close, while his state becomes poorer and poorer and poorer? And then they continue to vote the same way. It's on them at some point. And by the way, it's on us, Democrats, for not having better candidates. And for the candidates that we do have, for not having the stones to go out and ask people to put 2 and 2 together. Let's think about this, Republicans in Kentucky. You get poorer and poorer and poorer. Your schools do worse and worse and worse. You can afford less and less and less, but your senator's a billionaire. Went from a very mild-mannered local country lawyer to become a billionaire. Come on, folks. And these are the hard questions that Democratic candidates across the country have to ask. We have to be able to puff our chests out a little bit, stand up tall and say, no, you have been lied to. You can try to tell me that Democrats are the party of this, 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 and this. All of that is a lie, and I'm going to explain it to you. And if you don't want to hear it, I'm going to explain it anyway. And then I'm going to challenge you to think and to be better and to do better. And then, by the way, you vote for me, you put me in office, and I fail, go vote me out. That's the American way. And we as Democrats and as Democratic candidates all across this country have to be able to make that case. We capped your insulin prices at $35. Every Republican voted against it. We put $1.5 trillion into infrastructure. Every Republican voted against it. We're the ones that put $400 billion into greening the economy. We are the ones that want to stop the advance of fascism across Europe. We are the ones that built that new computer chip factory that you work at. We did that, and they fought all of it. We are the ones who actually wanted to grant you all unprecedented amounts of money for the southern border. And they voted against their own bill because of pure politics. They did that. We have to make that case. We have to be honest. Honest. And we have to challenge folks. We have to challenge them to face the truth. And we have to be honest enough to accept our own failures. You're right, women. Democrats had complete control of the government for the first 2 years of the Obama administration and the first 2 years of the Biden administration, and failed to codify Roe. That's a failure. We failed to break trickle-down economics. We failed to end it and kill it where it stands. Failed. And I personally think there is a new generation of Democrats, and I don't mean just young ones, but lawmakers of all ages who realize that if Democrats get complete control of the federal government again, that we will act with more urgency. We will codify Roe. We will increase corporate taxes to at least 50%. We will increase the top margin to 35%. We will increase the top marginal tax rate back to at least 50%. Frankly, I'd put it back up to 91. We will lift the cap on Social Security taxes to make it more solvent. We will forgive student debt. Because we didn't. And I think we do know, I genuinely believe that there is a new group of Democratic candidates and lawmakers who feel that urgency. I think I think some lawmakers do get complacent because they know that the system is slow. It's designed to be slow and deliberate, but they also know that we've got to get something done urgently, because Democrats had control of Congress, the House and the Senate for 50 something years following the on the onset of the New Deal. Straight on for 40 plus years. Republicans took the House very briefly in the goodness, I think it might have been the 70s, but then immediately gave it back. It only lasted for 2 years. And now we go back and forth, seemingly, through gerrymandering, through Citizens United. We go back and forth. So I happen to believe that there is a new Democratic urgency to do the things that we said we were going to do, but that we'll get to it. We'll get to it. Well, I think I think there is a new sense of urgency. I truly do. Maybe you might think I'm wrong, all of you out there, or you might think I'm shockingly overly optimistic, which I never am. But I don't think so. I'd like to think, I hope I'm right. Very much hope I'm right that there is a new sense of urgency within our party that if we are fortunate enough that we will get these things done and that we won't fool around. So, Randall, go ahead, my friend. Have at it.
I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Time and time again over the last decade, Democrats have been in control of the House and the Senate and the president.
Randall, I got to tell you something.
What?
You're going to find this really, really funny. First off, I want to say hello to George, who gathered himself, even though he's feeling sick.
Oh, wow. I see him back on the screen. Okay. Hi, George. Love you, bro.
I just saw this and and I'm sorry. I will let you finish. I always do. This is really funny. Hang on. This is insane. Oh my God. I'm not this popular. I'm not this powerful. Okay, Randall. I hope you're sitting down, my friend. You're going to find this very entertaining.
I'm absolutely sitting down. Yeah, absolutely sitting down, and I'm on the edge of my seat.
So
to hear this, brother.
So I backed out of the live video to go back to see if there was any comments or questions that I may have missed from other places to try to get the closed captioning to restart again, because I do happen to follow it. It helps me know that we're still live and all that fun stuff. So I backed out. There's a new strip of information. I don't know what else to say. Header on the post of the program. Your video is blocked and cannot be viewed in 2 locations. So I clicked on it. Only blocked in 2 locations. And Franz is listening too. He's really going to enjoy this. Why would I only be blocked in 2 locations? What the hell does that mean? Does it mean 2 groups that I shared into or whatever? So I click on it. Your video was blocked because it may contain music, audio, or video that belongs to someone else. Your video matches 49 seconds of audio owned by UMG. I have no idea who that is. The 2 locations in which this block was applied to is, and I would ask Randall to guess, he'll never guess. I would ask George to guess, he'll never guess. I would have never guessed until I read it. Belarus and Russia.
Oh, God.
I swear to you, I'm reading it right here. I'm
Oh,
not
God.
making this up. I have been blocked 2 places on the planet, and not by Facebook. Belarus and Russia.
And Belarus,
Isn't that
although
hilarious?
although Belarus was when the Soviet Union dissolved and was collapsing, Belarus, just like Ukraine, just like Poland, just like the Baltic states, just like everything west of Russia, were given their independence again from the former Soviet Empire. And Belarus now, we know, they've staged Russian troops, they've staged Russian weapons to funnel through Belarus to hit the north of Ukraine, while Russia hits from the east side, in the Crimean, of Ukraine against the Ukrainian people and their country. And Belarus, it's, they're in the pocket of Putin and Russia.
Oh, the president or prime minister. I'm not. I don't know how they refer to him. He's the president of Belarus or the prime minister. I'm not 100%. It was installed by Putin. He's a Putin, not just an ally, but a protege, I guess you'd say, might be the right word.
Well, I call him a lackey.
That's another word for it. Yeah. Interesting. George just put in the chat, Universal Music Group NV is a Dutch American multinational music corporation under Dutch law. UMG's corporate headquarters are located in the Netherlands and in California. According to UMG, Abbey Road Studios, geez. They basically own all of music on the planet. But somehow I'm only blocked in Russia and Belarus. It's hilarious. Did I lose you, Randall?
No, I'm right here.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm right here.
George put some info in the yeah, I did the same thing. Interesting. The campaign song is owned by UMG. See, now I Googled that last week and found out that it's not owned by anybody. That it is now public, completely open to the public, and that if anyone owned it, it was the Kennedy Museum. Interesting.
Bingo.
Well, I guess we got to find a new song, or no song at all. I don't know. We'll find something. So I wonder if RFK Jr. paid royalties to UMG for his much ballyhooed campaign commercial during the Super Bowl. Hilarious. It's hilarious, but yet still, I'm only blocked in Russia and Belarus. That seems very, very ironic to me. And the interesting thing is that it only supposedly was 49 seconds of audio, even though the campaign song is 3.5 minutes long. Very interesting. Anyway, go ahead, sir. What else you got? It's all yours.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting week.
Oh God, yeah,
very, very interesting week.
yeah. I'd say interesting is yeah, yep.
Every point you made tonight about us Democrats, what we've been able to get passed on the national level, or here in PA, what we've been able to get passed on the state level with our governor, our Democratic governor being controlled. Earlier, you were talking with Carmela. I think it was Carmela.
Carmina.
Excuse me. I
No
apologize
worries.
to you, Carmina.
No problem.
When, our state constitution says that it's in our state constitution, and it flat out states that the legislature is required to pay 50% of all school expenditures. And there have been times when we've had Republican governors here in PA and Republican House Senate here in PA that it's gone down to 38%. And that means, our archaic tax, real estate tax, or, I don't know about you, but I'm sure it's the same way. Down here in Delco, Southeast Delaware County, right outside of Philadelphia, we have to pay, well, the majority of my taxes are always school board. And then it's followed by my municipality, and then it's followed by my county tax. And again, the big increase every year is always in school tax. And I'm retired, and I listen to all retirees. Hold on. I had to do a COPD cough. I apologize.
That's all right. I just took a drink. That's why I always have a drink next to me, because I get completely. There's nothing happening here if I didn't have one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
In any case, X amount of years ago, New Jersey, for example, their Supreme Court ruled there has to be equal equity of finances per student in the state of New Jersey.
That was the Abbott decision, and the school board district that I served was an Abbott district, one of the 30 poorest districts in the state.
Anyway, last year, the PA Supreme Court ruled that the funding for school districts is inequitable and
insufficient.
And our governor, Josh Shapiro, he tried, even though the Democrats slightly control the House in Harrisburg, and the Republicans control the Senate in Harrisburg, he pushed to get increased funding for equity among all school districts. Urban poor, suburban poor,
rural poor.
And they're rural poor. I hadn't got to that, but you jumped on the gun. No, that's 15 public. There's 15 public school districts here in Delco, Delaware County, PA. And the ones that are closest to the east, right next to Philadelphia, are the poorest. Mm-hmm. I've got a son-in-law working in one of the poorest suburban school districts here where 90% of his students are black and brown. And I'm out here in the southwestern part of my county. And 99% of students here are white. And yet we spent and as far as educationally, my school district right here is, I would just say it's mediocre. Versus where me and my wife moved from almost 6 years ago. Jason School District. It's mind-boggling that our governor couldn't get more money to school districts to follow what our Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled on the inequity between all school districts on per student expenditures. And go ahead.
I agree with everything that you just said, and it's accurate, which is even better. Here's the only thing I'm going to push back on. Among the increase in funding that the governor is pushing for, he's pushing for a dramatic increase in the amount of money available to charter schools. And that
I disagree with, just like you disagree with.
And
that's just sucking money out of public school systems and giving it. I don't know this. I'm just going to make a wild guess. 80% of public schools are for profit.
Well, here's a yes and no. Pennsylvania does legally, like in black and white on the books, quote unquote, for-profit schools are not legal. However, if a school district is paying a private charter company, be it online cyber charter, and Kristen will correct me as she well should if I get any of this wrong. Let's just say, to make the math easy, we'll say $10,000 per student per year. So that if a student here in the Saucon Valley chooses to go to a quote unquote public cyber charter or a charter school, the district sends that per pupil spending to that charter school. And again, just to make the math simple, we'll just say it's 10,000, just nice, easy number to do math. Which is ironic in an education conversation that we're making the math easy, but you get my point. So if this charter school somehow, wink, 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 somehow, only spends $5,000 of that $10,000, they get to pocket the other $5,000.
Exactly.
And there's your profit. So
exactly,
legally, they haven't broken any laws, but we just didn't spend all the money. But they also get to keep it. If they don't get to spend it, they don't have to return it. And they don't even have to show that they spent it. And he wants to put another $250 million into that. No. And here's another.
Absolutely not.
And here's another gray area that I think Randall will agree with. I can support this governor. Again, let's use that mythical list of like 10 most important issues. I can support and agree with this governor on his policy positions and solutions to 9 out of those 10, and still disagree with him on this. And we can still support each other and consider each other friends and agree with each other. I'm not friends with the governor, by the way. He wouldn't know me if he tripped over me. But that said, I can still consider myself a supporter. Now, the Pennsylvania State Democratic Committee tried to pass a resolution against his support for charter schools. And it was very conveniently shot down because we didn't want to, quote unquote, embarrass the governor. And a very powerful speaker stood up during this debate over this resolution and said, maybe the governor's wrong. And maybe he should be listening to us instead of us sitting here staying quiet on his behalf or for his
Absolutely.
or for his good press. This is the whole point of government, is that we can disagree with each other. We debate, we make our case, one side and the other, and then we compromise on a solution. There is no compromise here. This campaign to stop this diversion of money from public schools into private for-profit schools. Here's your bumper sticker: public dollars for public schools. Period. If you are a wealthy Collier County family, doctor, lawyer, professor, captain of industry, and you want to pay the 10, 20, 30, 50, if it's one of the private schools here in the Lehigh Valley that I won't name, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year to send your kid to, God bless you. Do it. You pay for it, not the rest of us. Wrong.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Public dollars for public schools. Now, here's the other area. The Bethlehem School District actually operates, oversees some charter schools because they provide a different method of learning and education for the students that need it. And I fully support that too. Well, Jeff, how can you support both? You don't support charters, but you do. I support the ones run by the school districts, accountable to the school districts, budgeted by the school districts, accountable ultimately to the voters through their school boards. There are many different ways that students learn. It's one of the great advances in education in this and every country, is that people learn in different ways. I am a visual learner. Randall might be a reading learner. He might absorb every single thing he reads. I'm a terrible reader. I'm a visual learner. I like to watch documentaries. I learn from that. So these charter schools that have opened up entirely new ways for students to learn, when they are managed, run, budgeted by, overseen by the school districts themselves, and ultimately accountable to the voters themselves, I'm all for it. These private for-profit companies, no, unless you choose to go there and pay for it yourself. Public dollars for public schools, period. End of story. Randall, it's you.
Absolutely in the story, Jeff. Absolutely in the story. And
sorry you're missing all this good stuff, Russia and Belarus. Sorry you're missing this, Russia. You poor folks. Crikey. Go ahead, my friend. I'm sorry. I don't know where I'm getting this burst of energy from, but it's coming.
You know, I'm 1,000% behind supporting Ukraine to get bullets, to get artillery shells. I am absolutely 1,001% now against Israel receiving any military aid, because
which is something
we know that the prime minister and the right wing party of power in Israel, they don't give a you know what about innocent people in Gaza being killed day by day, minute by minute. And the majority of the population of the Palestinian population in Gaza is under the age of 18. teens, their children, and Israel is massacring the children.
Largely for
And
political reasons.
well, of course, and it was nice, but it was really fluff that our president dropped meals ready to eat yesterday,
I would
and
disagree with that.
that those meals were gone and like eaten in 12 hours
I would
because the
disagree.
starvation level that's going on in Gaza from Israel going beyond a war against Hamas, but now a war against all civilians
Yep. Something they've
is
always wanted to do, in my opinion.
unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And yeah, you know what? Fully fund. I'm to the point now. Fully fund Ukraine to fight Russia that invaded their country and their people. That has now he's looking at where we're going next. And we talked about this, I think, last week. Does he go to the 3 Baltic states or does he go against Poland? Either way. And
Well, according
the
to
reason he wanted to go, the reason he wants to go through Ukraine, there's only 3 continental passes between Russia and Europe for invasion. One's through the Baltic states, one's through Poland, and one's through the Ukraine. And that's why he wants to defeat the Ukraine. So he has one low-level path to go through to conquer the rest of Europe. And then we've got the orange orangutan that says, well, if you don't pay your NATO expenses, well, we're just going to tell Russia, take what you want. This guy running, and it absolutely appears he's going to win the Republican nomination.
well,
This orange orangutan has proven to me he's a total traitor to our USA interest.
I can't argue with any of that. I would simply say, though, that just a couple things on Israel. No less than Bernie Sanders himself, a Jewish American, practicing Jewish American.
And I posted that on my personal Facebook page of what Bernie said.
Stood in the well of the Senate and said it is beyond time that we not send another dollar in military aid to Israel. And I agree with him 100%. Mr. Netanyahu is keeping this war going because he's keeping his own ass out of jail. He tried to completely subvert the Israeli courts so that the corruption cases against him could not go forward. Sadly, there is an entire generation of Israelis who know basically no other prime minister other than Netanyahu. Although reporting would suggest that the sentiment against him is growing rather quickly. I would disagree with Randall on this point. I do not believe that the Biden administration ordering and commencing airlifting supplies to the Gazans is merely a token PR maneuver. In fact, I think it's a bit of a tiny middle finger to the Netanyahu administration to say that if you won't allow the supplies in, we'll take them indirectly. We'll go around you, which is exactly what they did. Were the supplies enough? No. Randall's right about that. I believe that this is merely only the first in a series. I think the pause after the first drop was to see how the Israelis would react and to try to give the Netanyahu administration, if you will, a little space to say, fine, we'll open up the gates and we'll let more of it in and on and on and on, and to not risk the possibility of a truce, which President Biden seems to still continue to believe is a possibility. I think if you get no movement from Netanyahu, that you will continue to see airlifted drops into Gaza. So I would very respectfully disagree with you. I don't think it was a token. I don't think it was PR. I don't think it was just for show. I think it was a bit of a way to tell the Israeli government, not the Israeli people, but the Israeli government, that if you can't work with us, we'll just go around you.
And Jordan Air Force showed the same thing to the Prime Minister of Israel, because they did airdrops.
I hope
Why?
I hope they all do. I hope the Saudis do airdrops. I hope Egyptians do airdrops. I hope they all do.
Because why? Because they're all the aid trains coming from the Egyptian border. There's just not enough of them, and the starvation level among the people. You know, what did we see this week? Oh yeah, we saw a group of Israelis on the Egyptian border saying, "Don't send any more aid because it's all going to go to Hamas. They're going to steal it." Well, you know what? Whether or not that is true, the bottom line is food is getting into the country. Water is getting into the country. Medicines they need are still really not. But again, it's beyond this war of Israel against Hamas is beyond going against Hamas. It's going against all the 2.5 million civilians, and 50% are children within the Gaza Strip that are suffering so incredibly to just survive day to day. Go ahead.
Well, an interesting little thing happened this week on Morning Joe. If you watch Morning Joe on MSNBC, they showed a map of the Gaza Strip. And it is no longer the same map that we used to see. The Gaza Strip is still outlined in its original boundaries, but the northern half of the strip is now in a completely different color, as if it is no longer part of the original strip. And I have a feeling, I think personally, this is something that Netanyahu wanted the entire time. I think he considered the Gaza Strip a nuisance and that it was Israeli territory, and he was just looking for a good reason to go take it and clear it of the Palestinian people. Whether he had to kill them or drive them out, I'm not so sure he cares, especially if this war is saving his own political behind from being in jail where it belongs and where he was heading, because he was going to lose this corruption case because the evidence was overwhelming. But Hamas launches an attack, a brutal, barbaric, medieval attack on the neighboring towns around the strip. Partly, we now know, using money that had come to them from the Netanyahu government, because he was funding Hamas to keep them separate from the Palestinian Authority. And an attack prompted by the Iranians, because the Saudis and the Israelis were close to signing a peace treaty. And were scheduled to sign that treaty the week following the attack. So there's a lot of moving parts here. But it is interesting to me that an American news network would show this altered new version map of the Gaza Strip, with the northern half now as a sort of, we don't want to say neutral territory. That's not the right word for it.
How about no man's land?
That might be a right word, because it wasn't colored. The map, that part of Gaza was not colored the same as Israel, but it also wasn't colored the same as the southern half of the strip either. So it would seem to me that MSNBC was, even if unknowingly, implying that the northern part of the strip was never going to be returned, that it was now going to be this sort of nebulous in between sort of territory that maybe wasn't entirely Israeli, but it was certainly wasn't Palestinian anymore either. Very much like the West Bank. So we know that Netanyahu has every political reason to keep this going. He doesn't care what is happening to Israel's reputation around the world. He's just saving his own ass. He doesn't care. And personally, I think Netanyahu's always wanted to slaughter the Gazans. He just didn't have a reason. Hamas gave him one. But I would disagree, as I said when I started on this diatribe, I would disagree with you that I really don't think that the airlifting of supplies was some sort of token gesture. I think it was a way to implicitly show to the Israelis that if you can either, we can continue to work together on this to find a peaceful solution to this and to find a way to stop slaughtering innocents, or we'll just go around you. I also happen to agree with Bernie Sanders. I think it is only emphasized the fact that Senator Sanders is a man of the Jewish faith himself, to stand on the floor of the Senate and say, not one more dime, not another dime should be going to this. I don't think that that's an insignificant fact. I happen to think it's a very significant fact that a man of the Jewish faith and Jewish heritage stood on the floor of the Senate and said, no more. So I would humbly disagree with you on that point, but so many of the other points we're spot on. So give me one last thing before I try to pray that somebody else calls. Go for it.
Yeah, I pray too. Somebody else calls.
Maybe somebody will call from
yeah.
Belarus or Russia. Oh, that's right. They can't hear us. Gosh, I was so disappointed by that. Go on then.
Anyway, my friend, thanks for taking my call this week.
I always
Number
do.
one.
You know that.
No, I mean on private.
Oh, don't. Yeah, it's private. We don't need to do that. So
no, we don't. But thank you for taking that call.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for giving me time to talk to you just one-on-one, because I was talking to you about a husband and wife and what they're going through in Florida. That's just popped like crazy over YouTube around the world. That Jeff Hales has, by a corrupt judge in Levy County, Florida, was first stripped of his first constitutional right and stripped of his right to bear arms to protect himself, even though him and his wife have both had guns pointed at them. And they're going to go back. They have their home in Ohio during the summer, and they snowbird in the winter to the property they bought in Florida. And this temporary injunction by this corrupt judge against Jeremy Hale, one thing it says is, well, not only do we confiscate all your arms to protect yourself, soccer, etc., we're going to make sure you can't protect yourself at all. You can hire a private security officer that's armed. They can't be within 500 feet. You can hire an off-duty police officer armed. They can't be within 500 feet to protect. And so people out there, check out What the Hale on YouTube and follow this case, because this judge has absolutely stripped this couple of all their first, let's see, 1, 2, number 5. I'm getting down the list of their amendment rights.
Which is ironic for Florida, isn't it?
No, and just for your viewership out there, listeners out there, this judge ran and lost in 2019, and then he was appointed by Ron.
That's why we don't
There-
shouldn't. Yeah, that's why we shouldn't have
sorry?
judicial elections. That's another topic for another day.
Oh, I know, but it's all interconnected down there in Florida
yeah.
with the hell, what they're going through from a stalker, from the court system, from the sheriff's department, from the Florida State Attorney General, who have absolutely refused to enforce the permanent civil protection order against these people down there. And yet federal law and Florida law says you must enforce these permanent civil protection orders against
Well, look,
the stalker.
all it does is go to serve the point, one that I made here months ago, is that Florida is no longer a functioning part of this country. They are not a functioning democracy, and how they are even still, an American state is almost a stretch of the definition. Mr. DeSantis has become a dictator in Florida. The laws on, we're supposedly a nation of laws. Republicans love to talk about that, except when it's not convenient for them in their pursuit of power and riches. They are selectively enforcing the law down there. They have, Mr. DeSantis has done everything he can to rip away bodily autonomy of women. I read 2 articles this week from the Associated Press. Happened to mention to Kristen that I thought it was very strange that the Associated Press was not doing a series of articles on this topic, but it was odd to see a number of them, that the population of Florida is declining. People are moving out of the state at an accelerated rate, at a disproportionate rate compared to other states. Property values throughout the state are declining, and that these people that are trying to move cannot sell their homes for what they're worth. And yet somehow at the same time, rents have become so high that people can't afford rents in Florida either. Which seems in a weird sort of way to be a disconnected set of facts, that you can get rental prices for things in Florida, but you can't sell properties for what they're worth. That seems strange to me. But the fact that the population there is declining, and that people are moving out of the state, the trend is to get out of Florida rather than go to it, shouldn't be a surprise to any of us. You have a governor who is a dictator. This is not a democratic state, and I don't mean blue democratic, big D democratic. I mean small d democratic. You have little fascist authoritarian entities in this country, and they're growing. Florida and Texas, of course, at the front of them, but increasingly places like Iowa and Montana and Idaho. These are North Dakota. Kristi Noem in North Dakota has become quite the little Hitleress herself. So, I mean, we have serious small d democratic problems in this country. We have states, I think it was Jefferson that said that states would be the laboratories of democracy. Well, yeah, kind of, but they're also the laboratories that are killing it. These are not free states. The former party of small government and local control have become the ultimate authorities within their states to not just enforce speeding rules and fight crime and good quality of life, regular good quality of life issues that all Americans can agree on. They've become laboratories of fascism. They've become laboratories where corporations are allowed to run rampant, where the rich can do as they please, but women and people of color and poor people are left to die. And that if you don't live according to the way the dictators of these states think you should live, then you are now a targeted community. That's not democracy in any way, shape, or form. So these are not, it was interesting to see those articles this week about the decline in the population in Florida. And I happen to think it is a trend that will continue. But anyway, let me move on, my friend, and give somebody else a shot. Just hopefully they'll take advantage of it and do the same thing that you and Carmina did today. See, look, calling the program doesn't hurt a bit. Just ask Randall.
Well, it's not just people of more liberal persuasion are leaving Florida.
I think that's part of it, but I also think there's a lot of reasons.
No,
to be honest. I think families,
there's LGBTQ plus
yep, exactly.
people leaving Florida for the same reason.
I think families are leaving because of the disinvestment in the schools. I think there's a lot of reasons.
Yep.
Not to mention that 3/4 of the state will be underwater from sea level rise.
Well,
So,
that's why I'll never move to Florida for another reason.
Yeah.
But anyway, Jeff, thank you for taking my call as usual.
All right, well, stay healthy, my friend. You take care of yourself. Take care of the wife.
I'll see you over on the Villain View.
Well, at least for a few minutes, right?
Okay. Bye-bye, my friend.
All right, you take care.
Thank you. God bless.
All right, there's a couple of I'm overdue for a reset again, of course, because Randall and I blew through the top of the hour. So this is the Kennedy Effect Live, and we're in our third hour. We might make it to 9. Wouldn't that be something special? Wherever you are on Facebook, stay right where you are. Enjoy to every group, individual groups, both large and small, public, private, local, regional, national, worldly, that allows us to be part of it. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We couldn't do it without you. If you are approving our posts later on in the week, and the number of groups that do that, and because look, the administrators of these groups have lives. They're not just sitting around waiting for my post to show up to say, yes, we approve. They sometimes, I know that some of the administrators of these groups, they get 20 posts and they go through them on a certain day, and that's when they approve everything. Awesome. That's awesome. The number of groups who are allowing us in, both on today, on Sundays when we're live, as well as approvals during the week, continues to grow. We are grateful, immensely grateful to you for it. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you. Thank you. So stay where you are, watch right there, or come over to my own personal timeline, Jeff Kennedy. Give me a comment, give me a question. We'll try to take you right up till 9. Looks like we might make it, but we'll try. No promises, because I continue to have a bit of a wonky nose and keeping my breath and so on, which is always a challenge, it seems. So there's that. Hot101.net, our name is our web address. Apple App Store, Google Play Store. Tune in radio app. Tell Alexa to play Hot 101, the TCP Media Group, and the PayGive app. You have to buy things. When you do, you have to pay for them. Why not give while you do it? There are 2 articles. First off, let me say this very quickly, because I don't want to forget. Oh, let me also say this, because I don't want to forget, because I almost did. If you ever miss any of our program, if you're tuning in midstream, if you are trying to watch it on Facebook and you keep missing bits of it or whatever it might be, I continue to encourage you to please check out the YouTube channel. It really is the best place to watch the recorded version of the program. That is actually not an anti-Facebook statement. It's just that, on the groups that are very kind enough to share our program, as posts continue to come in, ours drops down. It becomes harder and harder to find. The easiest place to find us when we're done, the complete recorded version of the program, is youtube.com/that other side of information. That other side of information on Facebook and YouTube. I pin it to the top on our Facebook group page, and then YouTube, of course, they are listed there by date. So that's a very easy way to catch up on the program. Quickly on the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court this week agreed to take a case on the arguments of presidential immunity, because ironically, somehow Mr. Trump believes that everything he did before he was president, as president, and now after, he is immune from, because at some point he was president. Now that's very interesting to me. I have not run for president, but do I automatically become immune from all criminal prosecutions if I simply declare myself a candidate for president? Because that's the argument that Mr. Trump is making. Then when I am president, there is a level of presidential immunity that protects the office and the office holder from being sued personally for every policy decision that they take. Now, we've seen right-wingers, very well-funded right-wingers, find families that they prop up to put these different cases in courts, like the IVF case, like the mifepristone case, like the Hobby Lobby case, the baker who didn't want to make a cake for a gay couple, these Christian moral majorities, these, Koch brother funded groups. They'll find these families and businesses and tell them, we want you to sue on this basis. We'll pay for everything. You just have to be the face of it. That is now its own cottage industry. The Supreme Court has the right to take any case that is appealed to it. If someone sues for review or appeal to the Supreme Court can take or not take any case it chooses. So the fact that they took this case is really not the point that everybody should be upset about. Let us make no mistake. This is the most partisan and corrupt Supreme Court in the history of the Republic. Alito, Kavanaugh, Barrett, and Thomas are fully paid and owned by billionaires. Kavanaugh had a $400,000 personal debt that just magically got paid off and disappeared as soon as he was nominated to the Supreme Court. Mrs. Barrett, same. Public advertising campaigns funded by all these Koch brother groups and the I'm gonna forget the name of the Leonard Leo group. I'm gonna forget the name of it. The something society that picks all the judges for Republicans. Alito is now a mega multimillionaire since becoming a Supreme Court justice. We know all the stories about Thomas, the billionaire who took him on trips worth millions and millions of dollars, bought him a motorhome, bought a home for his mother, sent the kid to college, all this stuff. This is the most Federalist Society. That's what it was. This is by far the most owned, bought, bribed, corrupt Supreme Court in the history of the Republic, and by far the most partisan. But yet, they have a right to take the case when it's appealed to them. Here's why we should worry. Here's what's troubling about them taking this case. The fact that they took the case presupposes the fact that they may agree with Trump. And let's remember, he put 3 of them there. You could argue he owes them. Oh, Gorsuch is owned too. That's 5 of them. They owe him. You could make the argument. So the fact that they took the case presupposes the fact that they could agree with Trump's lawyers in the final decision. The other frightening point, and this is one that I am not well versed enough to speak on because I am not a lawyer. I am not a constitutional scholar. I do not play one on the radio. But all, even some of the pundits on Fox said that the DC Circuit Court's opinion, ruling and subsequent opinion about Trump's immunity claim was so airtight, it was written so beautifully, all of the legal citations, the back case law, the precedents, all of it was so airtight and well written that the Supreme Court had no room to overturn it. That there's nowhere that the Supreme Court could possibly go to overturn it. But they took the case anyway. And that should frighten you. Justice Thomas, of course, this week also talked about how, again, he seems to be very happy with the Alabama State Supreme Court's ruling on in vitro fertilization, and that it's time that we review women's ability to get contraception. And this is why I tell you that this Republican Party does not want to take America back to the 1950s. They want to take you back to the 1450s, the 1150s, where women were property, and that the only valuable members of society were white landowning males. One has to wonder, and I'm getting this one this statement might be a little dodgy. This one might be one that I hear about later in the week. How does Justice Thomas look himself in the mirror, see the face of a black man, and hate his own people? He is actively working to turn this country back to the 1850s, to a pre-Civil War society. A man of color himself, who I am certain at times in his life has faced tremendous racism, and yet cares nothing for it because he's been bought. Why are these justices becoming wealthy? How does Mitch McConnell go from a pretty middle class, even lower middle class local attorney to a billionaire? Or just short. I believe he and his wife together worth about $950 million. How does that happen? Because they're paid for. This is what Citizens United has brought us. 8:30, entering our final half hour. The Villain's View comes up live at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Here, that other side of information on Facebook and hot101.net on Facebook and hot101.net audio, global internet radio all around the world. The Villain's View live following us wherever you are on Facebook. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My own personal timeline, Jeff Kennedy, come see us. Ask a question, put a comment in there. Phone line is open, 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. You heard two callers tonight. Didn't hurt them a bit. They didn't bleed out, didn't die from pain. It's easy. It's just a chat. 267-227-9189. We are live now on YouTube. And if you've missed any of the program, that same place, youtube.com/that other side of information is the best place to go. Hot101.net. Our name is our web address, Apple App Store, Google Play Store, and the TuneIn Radio app, the TCP Media Group from Lancaster, PA, and the PayGive app. www.paygive.org. You have to buy things when you do, you pay for them. Why not give while you do it? 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189 is the number. Great thanks to Jay for being here pretty much throughout the whole program, which is really awesome. Hello, Patricia. And I think I didn't miss, I don't think I missed anybody. So hopefully I said hello and welcome to all of you that are here as well. Again, if you missed any of the program, youtube.com. We are live there as well. You can watch us there. You can put comments in on our YouTube. I will see it because I'm watching it over here. It's a great place. If you have comments, questions, this is the time. If you are gutsy enough that you want to make the phone call, do it. 267-227-9189. And again, my deep thanks to George for popping into the program tonight. I always feel better when he's here. He is really quite the security blanket, which is probably not the best way to put it, but I always feel I just feel so much more comfortable when I know that George is here and part of the program, and he's not feeling well. He's under the weather, but he is here anyway, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful for it. There's two newspaper articles. Oh my God, what did he say? Yes, newspapers. Look, a newspaper. Wow. Paper. Pretty cool. And by the way, if you have a local newspaper, support it. If that means buying an online subscription or actually getting a physical newspaper delivered to you, please do so. State of media in this country is at a crisis point where huge conglomerates own almost everything. And even local newspapers are highly, highly dependent on national advertising and nationally generated articles. Local reporting is a dying, dying art. The way you can support it is to subscribe to it, whether it's a physical paper, an online subscription, whatever that might be. I hope that you will do so. So I was getting ready for the program. Today is our Sunday paper. I'm not even going to tell you what paper it is. Let them pay. I should tell you what it is, but maybe I will. I don't know. So I was flipping through, and I actually found a couple of articles that I wanted to highlight because I just think they're interesting, and I think they kind of fit in with what kind of what we've been talking about a little bit tonight. And if you can hear me rattling, I'm trying to make sure I can read this. Oh, fine. That's the Allentown Morning Call, the morning call from today, Sunday, March 3rd. I almost said September. Why would I say such a thing? And this is a story that actually was reprinted in the Morning Call from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Kristen Graham is the author. The story comes from Philadelphia, and I think it's really, really interesting, and it goes into the Israel discussion that we were having. And Miss Graham writes the following. Again, this is Kristen Graham, an author, reporter. I guess you author an article as much as you are a reporter. I think I used the right term there. She writes the article for the Philadelphia Inquirer. I found it reprinted today, March 3rd, in the Morning Call. This is from Philadelphia. The headline is, School Faces Pushback for Censoring Student Podcast. With the subheadline, Video about Palestinian Art Aired at Black History Assemblies. And as bad of a reader as I am, I did read this. Most of it, because it really is very difficult for me to read. The African American History class assignment: examine a modern day group of indigenous or oppressed people's use of art as an act of resistance and connect it to enslaved Black people's use of spirituals. That was the class assignment that this video and podcast was done about, which is it's a damn deep subject for a high school project. It actually gives me some faith in public schools that we're still doing difficult assignments. 2 Northeast High students chose to create a video of a podcast about Palestinian art. Their teacher gave them an A and chose it for entry into the school's Black History Month assemblies after clearing the video with the principal, who reached out to higher ups in the Philadelphia School District. So students take this assignment, they create a video podcast, they get an A. Last I knew, A still pretty damn good. It was so well received that it gets submitted to be shown during an assembly. The teacher, being careful in a modern era, checks with the principal first, who says, yeah, I think we're good, who then is careful enough to then check with the higher ups in the district, who then say, yeah, we're good. After the first assembly, one Jewish teacher raised objections that the video was anti-Semitic, as did community groups alerted about it. And then district officials ordered the immediate removal of the video, which never mentions Jewish people, but mentions simply the ongoing situation in Palestine and Israel, and uses an image of people in Muslim garb standing in front of a Palestinian flag next to, not in front of, not over, not instead of, next to people in yarmulkes, said that, in front of an Israeli flag. Palestinian and Jewish people standing next to each other equally behind their flags. The act proved to be a lightning rod, stirring voices of educators aghast at censorship, while groups including the newly formed School District of Philadelphia Jewish Family Association that the video indicates Jewish people are oppressors and therefore anti-Semitic. Again, I will turn to Senator Sanders, a Jewish man who has told us in this country that being anti-Netanyahu, anti-Israeli government policies is not anti-Semitic. I have never understood the cultural phenomena of how Jewishness is considered a nationality. It is the only religion that I can think of that is also kind of interchangeably used as a nationality. Oh, what is your heritage and nationality? I'm Irish. Jews say, I'm Jewish. That's your faith. That's your religion. And God bless you for it. Your nationality is, but we somehow seem to treat that as a a nationality. I don't quite understand it. I never have, and I've never had anybody explain to me why and or how that happens. But this article is yet another example of how anything that even mentions Jews and Palestinians in the same sentence is automatically anti-Semitic. Have we as a country and as a society become so dumb and so dumbed down that we can no longer see the difference? I've had other people tell me that this is a gray area. I don't think this is all that hard to figure out. I don't understand why it can't be both. Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th was medieval. It was barbarity that hasn't been seen since the Crusades. Rape, torture, burning bodies alive, kidnapping, mass slaughter, burning buildings and villages. It was medieval. It was barbaric. It was crusade, medieval style barbarity. Israel has every right to defend itself. Every single right to defend itself. Even by international law, it has every right to defend itself. It does not have the right to commit genocide. So why can't we see the difference? I suspect I'll get attacked for being anti-Semitic. Anybody who knows me knows that's a lie. I do not agree with the way the Netanyahu government is conducting this war. I agree that they have the right to conduct a war because the attack was that barbaric. I don't agree with the how, but I do agree with the why. I also think the Palestinian people themselves need to rise up against Hamas. There has been one election in Gaza. Hamas was elected the government of the Gaza Strip 17 years ago, and Hamas has never had a single election since. The Palestinian people have to finally ask themselves, as we were talking about with poor Americans here in this country, do we not deserve better than this? There's been some reporting this week that that there is a growing sentiment within the Palestinian people that they are growing, that they're getting the message that Hamas caused all this on us. And it's not something that we wanted. And that there is a growing sentiment against Hamas. I hope that's true. I hope the Palestinian people use this incredible amount of barbarity that has been put back on them as a reason to stand up and say we deserve better. So these high school students who make a film about the art of the Palestinian people, never mentioning the war, never taking a side in that war, even showing as part of the video Palestinians behind their flag, Israelis behind their flag, standing next to each other equally, is somehow anti-Semitic. Anti-Netanyahu is not anti-Semitic. Period. Same way that complaining about your taxes is not anti-American, or suggesting that we spend entirely too much money on defense is anti-American. It is not. To complain about something, to challenge something, to work, to try to highlight the shortcomings of it and make it better is about the most patriotic thing you can do. To form a more perfect union. To criticize the actions of the Netanyahu government is not anti-Semitic. It is anti-government. It's anti-Netanyahu government. Israel has every right in the world to exist as a nation, as an independent, free, democratic nation. It does not have the right to commit genocide, and Netanyahu does not have the right to eradicate the Palestinian people simply because he's trying to keep himself out of jail. I believe in my heart 100% that Jews and Palestinians can live in peace next to each other. A two-state solution supported by the Biden administration, by the way, to me is the only solution. I do think the Palestinians have been very poorly taken care of by their Arab neighbors. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Emirates, these nations that have wealth incalculable at its levels have not helped Palestinian people nearly enough. And all of these things can be true without being anti anything. I don't hate Muslims because it is just a fact that the Saudis have not used enough of their incalculable wealth to help the Palestinian people. If the Palestinian people weren't so desperate, perhaps they would be living side by side with the Israelis in perfect peace. So to be anti-Netanyahu is not anti-Semitic. They're not the same thing. The Israelis have every right in the world to defend themselves. Every right. Every single right. Even international law says that. And the attacks on their territory in their sovereign free country, well, small d democratic country, were absolutely medieval and barbaric in every way. And some American officials have seen some of the Hamas own recorded tape, have been horrified, and they've actually been heartened in their, or hardened in their beliefs that Israel has the right to defend itself, but they also still maintain that they do not have the right to kill every Palestinian they can get close to. They do not have the right to wipe out 2 million people. Patricia reminds me in a messenger chat that the Biden administration, or the administration, Department of Defense, etc., is 3 more airlifts of supplies today. I don't think this is token. I think it's trying to send a message to the Netanyahu government that enough is enough. These people have a right to live. Same way the Israelis have a right to live in peace. So do the Palestinians. The Palestinians who are not part of Hamas and who have done nothing wrong and who are trying simply to live their lives, make a living, feed themselves, house themselves, see a doctor, attend a school, the same way any American would want, any Brit would want, any French would want, any Italian would. Jay mentions there's a difference between opposing the Israeli government's policies and actions and being anti-Semitic. Right, no kidding. Denying Israelis the ability to worship, or trying to do a forced conversion of them as was done to Jews throughout history, trying to force them to convert to either Islam or Christianity, that's anti-Semitic. I think we all know the difference. but criticizing their government for its secular policies is not anti-Semitic. I can't concede that point. If I'm reading your comment right, if I misunderstood it, feel free to have a go at me. But I think that's way too much of what's happening in this country. That anything that you criticize about Israel, anything, it was too hot. Boy, is it hot and dry over there, was somehow anti-Semitic. Mr. Netanyahu does not have the right to eradicate the Palestinian people. He simply doesn't. It's against international law. That doesn't mean that Jews around the world should not be proud, practice their faith without any form of intimidation. That would be anti-Semitic. Hating Jews for their Jewishness is anti-Semitic. Disagreeing that the Israeli government can wage unlimited war on the unarmed, innocent people, Palestinian people who happen to live in Gaza, is not anti-Semitic. That's a disagreement with the government on its policies. And these kids who got an A on their assignment, who showed in their video Palestinians and Israelis standing next to each other with their flags in peace, equally. That's not anti-Semitic. I should think actually it's the very opposite. I very quickly want to read an article from the Town Square section of the Morning Call. And a quick headline: Nikki Haley actually won the primary in Washington, D.C. I find that very interesting. It's the first thing she's won so far, but it is interesting. We've all been ready to hand this nomination to Mr. Trump, and I think it's his nomination too. I don't think she's somehow going to, make a storming comeback and take this nomination, but it is interesting. He hasn't lost yet, but he did today. Pretty interesting. Anyway, that said, let me just read this very quick. This is from a section of today's Morning Call titled Town Square, A Place to Be Heard, Your View. It's written by Mark Riddle. 7 cats and their owners recently vacated a condemned property in Bethlehem right in the middle of the holiday season. Having pets is often a barrier to finding adequate housing or emergency sheltering, so this was a particularly devastating blow to this brother and sister. They moved their household outside and lived for 6 weeks in the underbrush along various local trails and parks while staying hidden from view. Bethlehem's Community Connections team, social service staff who work closely with the police, counseled the couple to try to resolve issues with the landlord or find a new place entirely. Area nonprofits made offers to assist in any way they could by offering emergency shelter, housing advocate, or a simple hot meal and shower. But the couple politely refused services in fear of separating from their pets. They were at a stalemate. January rains fell, and the family moved to Spring Street under cover of the Hill to Hill Bridge, which is a bridge here in the city of Bethlehem. Families in America are facing many post-pandemic challenges. Homelessness rose nationally by 12% in 2023. SNAP, the food benefit, emergency allotments from the COVID pandemic ended 11 months ago. So why did I read this to you? For all intent and purpose, there was no unsheltered population or unsheltered problem in this country before Ronald Reagan. It is a relatively modern concept. And as a pet owner, and I hate to use that term. Gosh, I hate that term. As a pet parent myself, I can understand the deep love and affection for these pure, pure souls who do nothing but love and care unconditionally. And the fact that you would be willing to live outside for 6 weeks to not lose them says a lot about those folks. And the other reason I wanted to read it is because for all of the people that tried to help them, and I didn't read the rest of it because it appears that it did get resolved and I'm running out of time. So many organizations jumped in to try to help them and to try to keep their family together. And you could say probably 7 is way too many cats. That's not up to us to make that decision. But so many organizations jumped in to try to help them and to try to do the actual real God's work, to really live by God's word and help these folks, shelter the unsheltered, clothe the naked, feed the hungry. But here's the other side that I'd like you to think about perhaps until we reconvene next week. What a shame that all of those groups are necessary. What kind of country are we that we would find this level of homelessness and this type of family to be homeless as acceptable? At the very beginning of the year, I told you that my theme for the program for the year was going to be Robert Kennedy's campaign for president in 1968, where he asked the country to look itself in the mirror and say, in the richest country on earth, how can we have so much poverty, children starving, people who are homeless? And there was still a bit of a homeless population then, but nothing like it is now and nothing like it was post-Reagan. Kids that can't go to school, people that can't see doctors, people that can't find jobs, can't shelter themselves. And when I mean shelter themselves, I don't necessarily mean out in the open, but substandard housing. How in the richest country on earth is this acceptable to us? So for all the groups that tried to help this family, God bless you and thank God that they exist. But we should also ask ourselves, why do these groups have to exist? Why should these groups have to exist in the richest country on earth, where the top 1% has had $55 trillion handed back to them since the beginning of the Reagan era? How many homeless people would there be if that $55 trillion had been in the federal budget? So to all the groups that help this family stay together, thank you. But what a shame that you have to exist. In this humble host's opinion. That's as much as we can do for this week. It's 9:59. The Villain's View comes up live right after us. For everyone at TCP, for everyone at hot101.net, DJ Lex, DJ Earl, the entire hot101.net family. For George and Lynn Dare, especially George braving his cold tonight. For Daisy the dog, Guy the cat, Kristen downstairs, and of course the woman responsible for getting us on the air around the globe, April Riddick, Lehigh County Commissioner April Riddick. It's all the damage we can do for this week. We will see you next week. Please take care of yourselves and each other. The Villain's View starts right now.